All right, so I did a tutorial on like just a playthrough for Wagon Wheel. I like to do many videos on one song because there's so much to learn. This video for Wagon Wheel, if you had a hard time with the strum, then I'm going to do just a strumming, learning how to strum in swing time. And basically that would be your chart that you could stop and pause and try to play along to. This is going to be, I'm going to stay on one chord like G and just try to play through the strum a bit with you guys so that you get the feel of swing time. It's a lot different than straight time. So yeah, we're going to go through a bit of that, and I hope it helps you guys get some cool rhythms going. I'm not sure if you can see the chart great. It looks pretty good from here, and then you can see it's counting from your 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So you might want to be able to just say that. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. I get some students where I say that to, and they'll be like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E. Well, you want to keep the spacing even because it's about timing. Everything's spaced evenly. And we want to try to count how we want to say the rhythm, how we're going to play the rhythm, which would be, in this case, it'd be like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a. And you can notice that when I go 1 E and a, I'm hitting the and a little bit harder. I'm going to use more wrist because we don't really use our arm to strum, but it'd be more of a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 the 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now you might want to try that by yourself, stop the video, but maybe a little slower, something like. Now what I'm doing with this hand is just lightly touching the strings, not pushing so I get this sound, just lightly touching so they don't push onto the wood. And we get this muted sound so we can work with just our right hand and have this muting sound like almost like a drum pad that we can use to kind of keep rhythm with. So slow would be something like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. I'll stop. That would be not a bad speed. We could even slow it down more, something like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And then you want to try to count that and do it over and over. If you're having a hard time getting to not strum down on the 2, because we're going to say 2 and our hand's going to want to strum down on it, try and go 1 E and a 2 and bring your hand down but don't hit the strings a few times. And then go 1 E and a 2 again, maybe 5 times. Then try after your 5th time, if you can do that good, to hit the E after 2, where we get 1 E and a 2 E. And notice how I was a little harder on that E. And try to use your wrist more when I demonstrate. I kind of use my arm so you can see what's happening with my wrist and stuff. I'll try not to do that. But 1 E and a 2 E and a. Now we get E and a. So you might want to say 2 E and a. 2 E and a. And then try to put those two together. 1 E and a 2 E and a. Because the next thing is going to be the same thing, just repeated again, but we're going to say 3 E and a, 4 E and a. We'll just change the number from 1 to 2 and the number from 2 to 4 because we're playing in 4/4 timing. Means that we have 4 beats in a bar. So we get 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So if we're having a hard time again missing the 2, do that exercise 1 E and a 2. Maybe as slow as you need to. 1 E and a 2. 1 E and a 2. Get that really good. Then maybe come up and say E after 2. So 1 E and a 2 E and a. Do the same thing again, but say 3 for the number 3 E and a and 4 E and a. And then try to repeat it over and over again, like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E once you can say that out loud and use your wrists and strum, it's somewhat embarrassing for most people to do in front of somebody. They get very intimidated when I say, can you count out loud? They don't want to count out loud. I get it, because you're trying to understand how to count it, and it can be intimidating. But when you're by yourself, you can do it, and you heard how I counted it, so try to count along with me. So what I'll do now is I'll count to 4, and then I'll do it, so you know when we're going to start. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a. All right, so now I'm going to do it. I'm going to strum it. I'm just looking to see how much time I got left. I'm going to strum it for on one chord at a slow speed. If you guys can get that muted, stop the video, practice it. GoPro, start recording. GoPro, start recording. If you can get that muting part, 2, 3, that's great. Then we can try doing it on a chord. So basically, just staying on a G chord, basically. And I'd count us in. I'd be like 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4. So that's at a nice slow pace. So if you guys can lock that in, that would be great. Stop the video or maybe rewind back to where I started that. I could do it a little bit longer. Maybe I'll do it for 2 minutes this time, or maybe a minute. So 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a. Sometimes you see me hit just the top string on 1, E and a 2, E and a 3. It's kind of my bass line. Now when you look at the strum chart, you can see that it's split bars. You see the split here. Because I made a chord chart of the song, which will be on my next lesson on how to get through all the chords if you're having a hard time. And the chord chart looks like this. And you just follow it all the way down. See where the half bars are? So that'll be 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a. Whenever you see a chord in its bar by itself, it gets all of the count. 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a. So 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E. Same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Here, 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a. All right, so we got maybe another 40 seconds left. So changing chords, then it helps you because you could be like 1, E and a 2, E and a 3. Try to hit that D chord on 3. So we'll see on the next video on how to get through these chords for many songs other than Wagon Wheel. I'm just using this one to teach you swing time and chord changes. And then there's a play along that I've already posted for you guys to try to play along to. All right, I hope that all helps you, and we'll see you on the next video. I'm going to do another video for the chords. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.